America's most watched newsman, Brian Williams, admits to conflating facts and misremembering. Others say he lied when he told the world for more than a decade that the helicopter he was flying in was gunned down in Iraq. It was not. It was a different chopper. Now America's top-rated cable news anchor, Bill O'Reilly, is also being called on the carpet for, if not lying, exaggerating. I am joined by the Ebru think tank, Jackie Guzda, media analyst, Bart Rossi, psychologist, Alan Sanders, political science professor at St. Peter's University. Let's give a little shout out first to this cover story outing Dr. Rossi as the top psychologist in America.
Oh, please.
No, it's awesome. Social magazine, lifestyle magazine, talking about winter 2014. Quickly, before we get into it, what's this all about, Dr. Rossi?
I write for this magazine. I do a lot of stuff about relationships and the psychology of all of us, personality issues. And they did a nice shoot on me. I didn't think it was going to be covered, but it made the cover. So.
Well, we're glad to see you on it. Glad to see you here. Tell me what you think about Brian Williams and Bill O'Reilly.
I think there's a common denominator, although they're different situations, okay? First off, I think that O'Reilly can say whatever he wants. Hannity can say whatever he wants. They're commentators. Whether they're right or wrong or extreme, it's okay with me. Brian Williams has to tell the truth all the time, okay? Because he's telling the news as it's supposed to be. But the common denominator is they're both projecting that they tell the truth, that their view is the truth. You may not agree with O'Reilly, but he projects, even in an arrogant way at times, I think, that he's right. But guess what? He's fabricated his own background. He said that he was on the porch of this guy that was friends with Lee Harvey Oswald when he killed himself, when he committed suicide. But we now know that he was in Texas. He was not in Florida. A complete fabrication to make him look like he was part of the story, and he knew what he was saying on this report. But he was in another state. I mean, it's just not acceptable.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Bill O'Reilly and Brian Williams are held to different standards because the NBC Nightly News is supposed to be the New York Times of journalism, and Fox News Channel, the show with Bill O'Reilly, whatever it's called, is sort of like the National Enquirer. We expect to find confabulations in there.
You think?
I do.
You think? I must disagree with you.
And I believe MSNBC is the same thing, too. There are a bunch of big fat liars.
But MSNBC doesn't have the ratings that Fox has.
Right.
I believe that the people who give Fox their very high ratings believe Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, I think they believe him, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. They believe him, but the fact that he is less than credible isn't as much of a sin as if Scott Pelley is unincredible. David Muir with his TMZ broadcast on ABC isn't as credible.
No, you're right about that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Fox doesn't care. NBC cares. They removed Brian Williams from his chair for 6 months without pay.
But also, his lie wasn't as bad, in my opinion.
Right, and it's still breaking my heart that he told it. But...
Oh, I'm talking about Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, Bill O'Reilly. No.
I don't think I would break your heart.
Fox doesn't care. Fox doesn't care. They're not removing him because he's bringing in those ratings. What does that say about the state of the news in America?
Well, the State Department says we have to turn to Fox News when we want accurate information. Melanie Scharf said it the other day. Go ahead, tell me what you think.
I think the difference is that Brian Williams is a newscaster, and our dear friend Mr. O'Reilly is really a political entertainer. And that's the difference, okay? And he entertains by being nasty, by being mean, by being brash, by being pugnacious. It's Jon Stewart, on the other hand, on the Comedy Central, is also a political entertainer. He exaggerates, and people are entertained by that. But he entertains through comedy. Mr. O'Reilly entertains through being nasty and pugnacious. And so that's the essential difference. When you're a newscaster, when you are a broadcaster, both Stewart and O'Reilly are narrowcasters. They appeal to specific audiences who are entertained by what they hear, and so that's the essential difference. So Jon Stewart can exaggerate, O'Reilly can exaggerate, and you will still find the loyalists saying it's wonderful. But when Brian Williams exaggerates, that's different, because he is relied upon to give you the objective truth, or as objectively as the truth can be obtained and explained. And that's the critical difference. So in fact, the fact that O'Reilly and Jon Stewart are entertainers is very evident. They've appeared on each other's programs and they've jousted with each other. So we shouldn't take O'Reilly seriously. any more seriously than we take Jon Stewart, but we should take Mr. Williams seriously, and NBC did, and took the right action and took him off the air.
I agree 100%. Bart, the problem I have nowadays is when you turn on the TV, there's nobody you can trust anymore. Fox has given it to you from the right. NBC has given it to you from the left. It seems like they're more concerned about ratings. The new anchor on ABC Nightly News, David Muir, his show is sort of like watching TMZ. It's one Hollywood. They have 22 minutes of news to give you. The newscast of record each evening is filled with celebrity interviews and foibles such as that.
I think everybody's become cynical, and that's why the ratings are down. You know, folks talk about Fox having high ratings. Actually, their numbers are shrinking. The average age for O'Reilly show is 72 and a half. I mean, they're shrinking. MSNBC's shrinking. Even CNN is down, of course. So what's happening? I think you're right. People are cynical. They don't trust folks. And I always say there's many different sides to our personalities. We have lots of different sides. Some are pretty good, some are not so good. In the news media, you ought to be able to project something related to the truth. And when I see Williams and O'Reilly go down this road where they're really fabricating their own identity, then I think people become more cynical and it's more problematic. And it's not acceptable to me for O'Reilly either, even though it is a different genre. Sure, it's different, except that he wants to project himself as being right. It's the factor. It's the O'Reilly factor. It's the truth. Well, guess what? He's lying about himself, and they're total fabrications about himself. It's just a way for most people, if they're honest, to be more cynical.
Are they both examples of narcissistic personalities?
Absolutely.
Jackie
Yes,
said yes.
absolutely.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Absolutely.
I hate most people who work on television. My children work in television as well, and I tell them most people who work on camera will stab you in the back and step over their dead mother to get a story, because that's the type of personality it often takes to ascend to the top.
Yes, that's true. You know, everything changed when the news became a visual medium. Before, it was what you read or what you heard. But once it became visual, they only hired the pretty people. They only hired people who wanted to be in front of the camera. People who, as Dr. Bart says, have narcissistic tendencies.
And it's becoming worse than ever, because they used to choose good-looking people who had solid credentials. The other day I was watching the nightly news. It wasn't Lester Holt anymore. It was Savannah Guthrie. I'm like, I don't want to watch this woman from the Today Show giving me the newscast of record. I turned it off immediately and I put on Scott Pelley, because I feel at least he earned it a little bit.
I have a solution, though. I have a solution. Right now, the news has to bring in ratings. But back in the day, CBS News, when Edward R. Murrow was a young reporter, it didn't have to have ratings. It didn't have to bring in ratings. CBS News was allowed to just do the news as honestly as they possibly could, and they paid for news production through entertainment programming. So the entire network shared the money from entertainment and put it into news who had no rules, no parameters, and they had to be honest and objective.
I agree with Jackie that CBS News was a jewel, and that in the old days, the old conception was that the entertainment provided the money and the news division provided the information. However, CBS is also guilty of having created the current regime, if you will. 60 Minutes, which was their great innovation, proved that the news could actually be entertaining.
And make money.
And make money, infotainment. And as soon as CBS moved from that model of the news is separate from the entertainment to a model that says, well, the news can entertain, we opened up the whole Pandora's box that we've been discussing. And so what we really need to do is to go back to the old model. But I don't know whether we can, because the whole media world is being run really under profit motive. Can we make money? Is there money to be made?
Right.
And that will keep the current model existing for as long as that's
people
the
keep on
ruling principle.
But to this point, we've moved into the spin zone. And what's happened since CBS was really reputable is we've moved into spin. And anything that we can twist and turn to make money for the program and for the news media, that's the way to go today. And people are realizing that this results in something far less than the truth, and that's the problem with the news today.
Final thought, Jackie, 20 seconds.
Sure, I do that experiment with my students. I show them Walter Cronkite, and they fall asleep or text.
Right.
But then they tell me that they do not trust the news. They only show you what they want you to think. So I say, kids, what's the answer? They're like, oh. So there is no answer. I think we're evolving.
Well, part of the problem is when I was growing up, Back in the good old days,
Yeah.
in the 60s and 70s, our parents made us watch the news.
Right.
I mean, it was just kind of our civic responsibility to watch the news, be informed, and then we'd all sit down to dinner and we'd talk about what we saw on the news.
But there
How
might be
unusual.
hope. Somebody might come up with a brand new idea. Let's have real news. And that might actually flock and create a whole new audience.
Exactly. Or we could even come up with a government program that people can have family dinner together once again. Who knows? When we come back, it is a lightning round from Han Solo's crash to email gate. Oh boy, Hillary's in trouble. Alan's going to beat her up after this. President
She certainly did herself
Han
in.
Solo?